Hey friends, we are back at iamdeveloper.live. My name's Nick Taylor, your host, and today I am hanging out with Mark Noonan, senior engineer at Cypress. How you doing today, Mark?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing good too. Aside from what I mentioned before the stream, and I'll mention it to folks that are checking out the stream. I tweaked my back doing something very Canadian, shoveling a lot of snow, and so I'm in a bit of pain. So if I look at all grumpy during the stream, I'm not. It's just I probably moved and my back went So, anyways, just wanted to get that out of the way. Cool, cool.
Thanks for powering through, Nick. Appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I'm super excited to be chatting with you today. So, I know we know each other from Virtual Coffee, which is a great community that we're both a part of. But you're also, as I mentioned, a senior engineer at Cypress. So for folks that don't know you, I guess, kind of give the who is Mark Noonan and kind of what are you up to, what you enjoy doing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. I can sort of say a few things. The main thing is, yeah, I work on the component testing team at Cypress, which is the team that exists now and released the feature that we'll kind of talk most about today. But
Okay.
that feature actually goes back to before I even started at Cypress. There was a couple of years of development and prototyping and plugins related to it.
Okay.
Um, However, I came to Cypress because of this exact feature. I was a front end engineer at a company that did fleet management. We had lots of maps, we had lots of live data, and
Okay.
we were using a combination of like jest tests and other things to get our testing running. And when
Hmm.
I learned about Cypress component testing in the browser, I was like, oh, we could get our components loaded and interact with them just like our end to end tests.
Yeah.
Um, as this is really full circle for me because back when I was like learning JavaScript, and my background before this is music and English and a bunch of work at
Okay.
nonprofits.
That's
And
cool.
back when I was learning JavaScript, Gleb from Cyprus came to Atlanta and did a presentation and just like blew my mind. Um, so I'm about 5, 6 years into my career as a developer, and then maybe 20 years ish, 20, 15 years of being a hobbyist before that.
Okay.
Um, yeah, there's a probably a good introduction to generally what I'm interested in.
That's cool. Yeah, I didn't. I think I remember you mentioning to me at some point in Virtual Coffee that you were in nonprofits, but I didn't realize you were into music as well. And it seems to be a recurring thing that comes up a lot with not every software developer, but uh, there seems to be quite a few people that make the transition, and or kind of come towards programming. And I don't know if it's because like music is kind of math under the hood, or it's even like playing music. Like I've spoken to a mutual friend of ours, Jessica Wilkins from Virtual Coffee. She was an oboist in an orchestra. There's so
Yeah.
much going on in music. Like it's not just reading sheet music. It's obviously being able to play your whatever instrument you're playing, but also syncing with the rest of the orchestra or whoever you're playing with. And I personally, I think, because I played piano when I was younger, and like I was in a handbell choir and stuff, and a lot of practice has to go into that. So I I feel like it's kind of like sports where you really have to put in that time to get good at those things, and I think those are great qualities that translate to probably any industry. But I think in tech, with programming, kind of persevering to keep trying to figure out something, I think those qualities definitely help.
So I think that's actually the key as well, because I've talked a bit before and people are interested in it, like, okay, what is the connection? And I used to think, okay, I was in college, I studied music, and I learned about like symphonies, which have these huge, large scale repeating cycles that take many minutes to happen. And
Yeah,
then there's like smaller patterns and smaller patterns. And so it structurally and in terms of repetitions and loops, it's a little bit sort of like metaphors you might use for code, calling other code, repeating, etc. And I
yeah,
thought maybe that's the connection. But over time, I started to realize, like, at least for me, it's what you just described is that, like, when I started learning guitar, I could watch somebody play and I'm like, it is physically impossible for me to do what they're doing. I, I,
yeah,
I absolutely can't do it now. And then my teacher's like, okay, but you can do this one part. You
Hmm.
can you can learn this chord, and then you can learn how to not just like two shapes, but learn how to move your fingers to transition between shapes. And
Yeah.
what you're learning is like the path each finger needs to take. It's such a small detail. You're learning how to move in these ways, and then your chord changes get faster, and then you can play more things.
Yeah.
But the proof of, hey, 6 weeks later, I can do something now that was completely impossible, and not just
Hmm.
theoretically, hands down, no way I could have done it 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's like that. Then when you look at programming, and I tried to learn programming, I want to say 10, 15 times. Like I gave up a
Hmm.
lot until I got used to, I guess, the failure that's part of the process. So that was part of like finding a community, finding free code camp and other places to meet developers that were
Okay.
also learning. But
Yeah.
like that sense of, oh, this is like practicing music. Even if I don't see progress
Hmm.
today, I have to have faith that continuing to learn, do exercises, learn JavaScript, whatever, adds up over time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably the most important aspect of music to me is incremental progress.
Yeah, for sure. And then like it's I won't go too cheesy with sports analogies, but even sports, like not that I ever became an amazing basketball player, but I'm not that tall. I'm only 5'7", but I think I might have lost a centimeter in the last few years. But I digress. But like I is this really funny? But like I was obsessed with jumping. Like I wanted to be able to grab the basketball rim, and I'm not kidding. I literally did these jumping exercises every day. I used to brush my teeth with my left hand, write with my left hand, all these things to it makes your brain hurt, but like I
Huh.
persisted at these things, and like I'm sure I drove my mother bananas when I was doing this, because I used to put a chair in the middle of the living room where we used to live, and I would you would kind of step up on it, and then you would jump with one leg, and eventually I was able to touch our ceiling, and then eventually I was able to actually grab a basketball, like a regulation basketball rim. I can't do it now because I'm probably a little heavier now, but my point is like if you put the effort into it, you will be able to do things that you thought were impossible. And the same thing, like you said, like for music, like I think, if you know what I mean, like you were playing the guitar and you're like, oh, it's awkward holding my fingers like this, I can't do this, or maybe, but then at some point you get that muscle memory, and then you're it's gonna sound cheesy, but you kind of start flowing with the music. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have to think less about where your fingers are, and you're focusing more on like how's the flow of the music go. And so, anyways, that's just getting my cheesy quota out for today. Um,
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. I like it.
yeah, cool. So I'm trying to think of a segue here to talk about what we're gonna talk today, but so
I might.
like you said, oh yeah,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say I might have a segue if you want one, because
Let's do
one
it.
thing about working in testing is like so many people are new to
Hmm.
testing, and even from Virtual Coffee where we know each other, it's a big mix of experienced developers, new people coming into the industry,
Yeah.
and I'm still lurking in my free code camp community. Like I'm constantly meeting people who are learning code,
Hmm.
and part of that is like, okay, so you're new to this thing. There's 100 things you don't know. But once you know
Yeah.
4 things, you're going to be really, really effective. And then all of us who have been around a little bit longer and know 20 things seem like we know it all, but we don't, right? There's still 80 things
Yeah.
we've never gone anywhere near.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the things I like about um, being in this testing world is it's so new. Even if you're a beginner at all coding, you can learn some testing, and that can help you learn. Or if you've done front end for years but never written tests because you didn't work at a place that required them,
Yeah.
you still have this beginner mindset of, oh, I'm starting something new. I might be a little bit nervous or
Hmm.
sensitive, perhaps, because I think I'm supposed to have a lot of expertise, and it just kind of,
Yeah.
doesn't apply right away. So all these things of learning, I think a lot about
Yeah.
education and exercises and stuff like that, even in regular work today.
This brings up something I think about a lot. Like people have obviously had imposter syndrome, myself included, even though I've been doing this for a long time. And the thing that I think people confuse what it is sometimes. There's like, I'm not sure if I'm as competent as I'm supposed to be versus I actually just don't know this yet. To me, there's a difference, you know, and I think sometimes people mix the two and then they kind of get down on themselves. And I really think like at some point, like when I first started off, I didn't have imposter syndrome. It was, I just didn't know some things or some basic things of programming potentially, but that didn't, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean I have imposter syndrome. I find, at least for me, imposter syndrome to me is more like, okay, I do this all the time. Why do I feel like I know nothing today? You know, I don't know what your thoughts are on that because I just feel like I've seen a lot of folks mix the two.
Yeah, I think I've definitely felt like I've worked with a lot of people who are like more plugged in or better at exactly what they're doing. Some of that comes with experience. Um, and at beginning, I also like I feel very lucky to have this job and this career. I think it's
Mhm.
it's amazing to have the flexibility that comes with this kind of job, and it's indoor work with no heavy lifting, which is pretty cool too. Like the just
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
basic conditions of being a developer. And so I've tried to reframe like kind of maybe anxiety or imposter syndrome as just being like, okay, I'm really happy to be working with people who make me feel this way, who challenge me. And
yeah,
also some of the people I know who are really effective, they are really effective because they lean into what they don't know and they're like aggressively curious. And it's not like you can never solve a problem. I think most problems as developers, we could work our way through them. If we have enough time, we'll eventually get there.
yeah,
But if we have like the need to be fast, it seems like it's a really common trait with successful, experienced developers to say, I have no idea what I'm doing in this thing. For some reason, I'm a backend developer and I have to work in your Vue app. So, Mark,
yeah,
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions while I'm working. If you don't reply to me, I'm going to still noodle around and figure something out.
yeah,
But I'll be a lot happier if like I can get answers. And the people I've seen that do that and are comfortable with what they don't know just
yeah,
like do great and are perceived as senior just as much as people who go into a cave and fix it all on their own. So
yeah.
seeing those people has helped me chill out, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I've been in the industry for a while, and I, to your point, I've definitely got comfortable knowing that I don't know everything, and I will never know everything. Nobody will. And I think, I think as you get more senior, like, well, I'm not even gonna say senior because sometimes senior doesn't mean experience necessarily, but the more experience you get, I think you're able to ask better questions, give better context to things versus like when you start out maybe. And so I think being able to ask the right questions or to even Googling, you know, how to Google better, you know, like
Mm.
those things kind of, they just get better as you evolve, obviously. And you know, maybe I'm Googling for how to do Cypress component testing. That was another segue.
Yeah. Well, like I Google stuff a lot. We have really thorough docs and everything. But everybody that's the other thing about this type of topic. Everyone's a mix of experience levels when you change contexts at work. When I get into
Yeah.
our like node backend, I can do pretty well at extending the existing patterns there, but if we need
Hmm.
a totally new idea that's not in the code base yet, I am
Okay.
certain that what I would do is wacky compared to what somebody would do who's got more experience writing kind of node backend code. Even though
Yeah.
it might work, they might look at it funny. Um,
Yeah.
so
But
yeah,
I think that's okay because that's not what you specialize in normally, you know. And so, but yeah. Um,
yeah, exactly. We get at like once you've got one thing where you feel a little bit comfortable, then and in fact, we can get back on the rails towards testing. For a little while, testing was that for me. I worked at a
yeah.
place that didn't do a lot of testing, and I came in knowing Cypress from having seen Gleb talk and having seen other things. And Cypress is
Yeah.
based in Atlanta, where I live. I live close to Atlanta, So they were present at meetups like the Vue.js meetup. They had one or two other testing meetups in town. So that
Hmm.
was the tool that I kind of got used to at the beginning. And then working with it meant I could go to a company and say, by the way, I might be coming in like at a junior level, but I am familiar with automated testing.
Yeah.
I learned some concepts from it. And then at my next job, Cypress was part of the job description. So I was
Okay.
able to say, like, okay, cool. So I use this tool at work already. Here's an area where I can contribute kind of day one. I know I can work with Cypress tests, even if I don't
Yeah.
know the framework or something else the company's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that brings up another thing about, well, end-to-end testing, but also maybe less so component testing, but also still related. But you know, like when you're doing end-to-end testing, because I was on this panel last year for Apply Tools, and they were talking about, like the question was like, well, if technologies change, how does that affect your testing? And the thing is, like if you have good end-to-end tests, like it doesn't matter what the site's built with, you're still saying go find me this thing. When I click this is the interaction I expect, and so on. So and this is to your point of like, maybe you go join somewhere where they've got a Java backend and all kinds of microservices which you have no idea about, but as long as you can get the site running locally, you can still do end-to-end tests. So yeah.
Yeah, that was like it's an area where you can contribute that it has two effects. Like when you start writing tests for a code base, let's just take a code base that doesn't have any tests yet.
Mm-hmm.
And in that situation, end to end is a great place to start. So if you've come to a company and you want to get to know the product, also going, oh, let's look at the test, let's add more tests. It forces you to
Yeah.
think about what is it supposed to be doing? Not what is it doing, but what is it supposed to do for a user? Are there requirements? Are there things written up that haven't been translated to tests yet? And you can write an
Yeah.
end-to-end test that attempts to interact with the page as a user. Sometimes you will find that you can't really do that. And so even trying to write the test can reveal a weakness in the code base.
Mm-hmm.
Accessibility is a good example. If you have a form field that doesn't have like a real label element with it,
Yeah.
then you can't do something like testing library, which works at Cypress, and we'll look at it later. You can't do something like get by label text to locate that form field.
Yeah.
Instead, you're going to say, get the div inside the other div that has the nth child of 4, right? Your test will have this weird selector that no user cares about.
Yeah.
And it'll say, type into that input. And regardless of whether there's a user facing visible label near it somewhere that says first name, last name, or something like that, you still have
Yeah.
a test that's like identified, oh, this is awkward. It's awkward because it's not accessible. So
Yeah.
here is an improvement we could make to our code base that makes the test easier to read because it's selecting by the right thing. And
Yeah.
it also makes the test more resilient because that div structure that happened to be this way on Tuesday could fall apart the next time a
Yeah.
developer pushes a change to that code. So I've been really getting into this idea of like, even at the most basic level, the smallest parts of the test, anything that will break if a test fails
Yeah.
is in in a way I didn't think about until recently, is specified by the test. So you're saying it matters. You're saying it matters that I have
Yeah.
the div and the other div and the nth child, and it doesn't really. It matters that you have the label the users need.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree, and even and not only making the test easier to write, but also it's more readable as well. Like, okay, click on the first name field and do this and this, and yeah, totally. Like the I know you can select by CSS select. I mean, not just CSS selectors, but by like class names too, and even that is potentially brittle because maybe maybe if you're using something like Tailwind where those things don't really change, but like basically you change the class names, you're breaking your test in a false way too. So it's
Yeah, like everything you put in there, we're saying I care if this changes, and it's
mhm.
really easy to write tests that care about way more than the human who wrote the test actually intended to care about.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, that's something that the other escape hatch for this is special data test attributes that you write, and you put these in your elements to say, okay, I'm going to make a data test attribute that says first name. So
Mhm.
developers know not to mess with that, and that my test can use this as a selector and say, go and click on input with data test first name. And I am actually slightly against that, except as an escape hatch and a fallback, because in that situation, you should still have an accessible label for the form. You've done extra work to make it like possible to select the form field in a stable way in your test. So your
Yeah.
test is stable, but you've sidestepped the accessibility problem that caused you to do the extra work. The extra work you might as well have done was make the label correct so that you have not got to maintain data test attributes for things that are themselves possible to select in a readable way already.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, and we're gonna get into component testing, but one thing, so my experience with Cypress has been mainly end-to-end testing, because Cypress component testing is, I don't know when that got released, but it's, I want to say relatively new. I don't know how new, but
It's so 2021 was the alpha release. April 2021 was when I started using it at my previous employer, and then the beta release was after I joined Cypress. And quite recently, like 2-3 months ago, the like full general availability happened. So it's only been kind of production release for the last couple of months. It's still really new.
yeah. And so correct me if I'm wrong here. So like, um, so with end-to-end testing, I mean, you have the Cypress test runner when you're running locally, like you can open it. Is that where you can do? Is that where you run component tests as well too? Or
Yes.
okay,
So this was what was so interesting to me about it when I worked at the fleet management company, because our old tests were view test utils just tests, and you
okay,
type a you type run in the terminal and it runs your tests, and then if it fails, it like spits out the DOM of the failing test and says like,
okay.
okay, you were trying to test this component and it didn't work. Here
Hmm.
is what it was like. And you look at that and you have to kind of picture in your head, what did this HTML look like?
Yeah.
What went wrong? Why was it not able to find the button? And you read the class names and you try to pick it out. And I used to try to think, okay, well, what happened when this component rendered in the test? But
Hmm.
eventually I realized it didn't render, right? There's no browser. There's a JS DOM and a
Yeah.
simulated headless browser environment. So it's not like it went into Chrome or Firefox or Safari or something. It rendered in a simulated environment. And sometimes the problem is your code and your component.
Yeah.
Sometimes the problem is the simulated environment does not provide a browser API that your component depends on. So you have to get a separate package to stub that browser API that you were trying to
Hmm.
use. And then there's a third category of problem, which is sometimes you didn't advance the component state through JavaScript to simulate the passage of
Oh yeah, yeah,
time. Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
in Vue, what that meant was our tests were covered in calls to $vm.nextTick, which is how you cycle a Vue component forward in a test like this.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so that was
Yeah.
my life, and you've probably had a similar life with React Testing Library or other things, and that was the state of the art for a long time. So I'm not even saying that was particularly bad. It was way better to have that than not have component tests.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
but because I learned Cypress first and I really liked the end-to-end testing in Cypress, when I was like, oh, so I could map my component and see it in a real browser and write my Cypress assertions and write everything, all the commands that I knew from Cypress, even network intercepts and stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have to switch gears to go into component testing. And I never have to care about VM.nextTick again in my life. Like just the
Yeah.
world of problems that you have to sometimes deal with, they're just gone now. Switching languages is gone, switching context is gone. As long as my component is in the browser, then everything is just everything you know from Cypress end-to-end testing applies immediately. So
Yeah.
like I really thought that was very cool. And when I saw that that team was hiring, I was like, oh, I don't know how to make a test runner, but I know how to like, I want to go and work on this part of it because I understand what this part's doing.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, that's the main difference between this and other forms of component testing is
Yeah.
we're in the browser, we have a page, you can use DevTools. It's like huge.
Yeah, that is huge because I am a fan of React testing library. When I worked at Dev 2, we were using Preact, so they also have Preact testing library, but it's literally the same API, and it definitely helped us for sure. But to your point too, it was kind of hard to figure out what was going on. Sometimes you could debug the log and you would get the rendered markup, but again, to your point, it was still in a Node.js environment with JS DOM. Typically, I think there's other uh, kind of virtual. I don't want to say virtual DOM
It's
because
so
that's a whole other
confusing,
thing.
isn't it? Yeah, I
Yeah,
try to say simulated browser as opposed to
yeah.
virtual DOM because I
Or
get confused. Yeah,
we'll call it the JavaScript matrix. I don't know.
there we
Take the
go.
blue
Yeah,
pill
yeah.
there. But yeah, and those tests were definitely helpful. But yeah, I can totally see it being so much more valuable being in an actual browser, much like end-to-end testing with Cypress. And I think something that's really cool is you don't need to relearn something new from what I think I understood. So like you said, you can do like sci.get, or you can use the testing library. So like sci.get by role, and you can use that in the end-to-end test, but also in a component test. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think the testing library API is brilliant. I use it all the time. We use it in our own tests at Cypress. So Cypress testing library, that package that implements it in Cypress is great, especially for me, get by label text and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The I use Contains a lot, and it provides a lot of the other ways of getting something like a button or whatever that I find
Yeah.
a little bit more convenient than testing library for that. But I still use it plenty for lots of things.
Yeah.
So that's all the same, and your main difference is, do I visit a web page in an application that I have to run? So a lot of end-to-end tests look like this, where you have an end-to-end test, but it's called like
Hmm.
header.sci.ts. And
Yeah.
then it goes to the header and it uses cookies or something, or logs in as different users, and it just tests the header component over and over again in different configurations. And to do
Yeah.
that, you have to start up your app and have it running. Versus a component test that mounts the header in an otherwise empty page and
Okay.
says, okay, well, the header gets some props, and the props come from a network request. So we can stub that and provide value, or we can directly stub the store that the header gets the props via, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we can test every combination of the header and make sure all the variations work without the time and expense of building and spinning up our application to do that.
Okay.
So we can then also build new variations of the header without having to navigate or simulate that state in our application as we build. We can say, I'm adding an admin user. So
Yeah.
let me pretend that that state is going to be there, and then go into the test and test everything about that state. And as long as your live data eventually in your, like when the API is finished, as long as it matches the stubbed format that you had,
Hmm.
like you've written all the code that you need to. Um, so that's, to me, that like really fast feedback of, I don't have, when I make a change, my component test will refresh immediately. I don't have to wait for the application to reload, like revisit the application, get into the state of that user, and then
Yeah.
find out if it passed or failed. So
Okay.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
lots of like there, but yeah, you're completely right that they're the same. Right after that initial mount command versus
Yeah.
visit in an end-to-end test, mount in a component test, you're doing the same world. Yeah.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about the mount. So the mount is like, for example, in React, you know, like React DOM dot render for your initial chunk there of your app. Because Cypress supports well, Cypress isn't meant to support multiple frameworks because it's just really like you're testing a site. But for component testing, I imagine you do have to support various frameworks. So I guess the common API is the mount, and then you would have like, you know, npm install, I don't know, at Cypress, mount React, mount Vue, or how's that work?
So we bundle them, and we have, yeah, React, Vue, Angular, and Svelte support kind of built in. And there are some version restrictions. Very old versions require different stuff. So like probably the
Okay.
last the last several versions of each framework are supported, and we have to keep up with the new ones to support them natively in Cypress as well.
Okay.
So what you don't have to do is typically worry about this in your own project. So if you have a new project or an existing Cypress project and you go to set up component testing, which is an option in the Launchpad, we'll
Yeah.
usually be able to detect the framework, and we will say, oh, you're using Vite and you're using React. And so
Okay.
we need to know your bundler and we need to know your framework, and then we can pull a custom mount command. So
Okay.
like the sci.mount in Cypress is just a hollow empty command that tells you, if you call it without having this step done, we tell you, hey, this is like a thing you have to customize. But if you just
Yeah.
follow the happy path and set up component testing, it will say, okay, we detect what you're doing, or we detect that we don't support it. So like
Okay.
you're on your own.
Yeah.
That said, if you are on your own, you can make your own mount command for something like Solid. And there are
Mhm.
PRs open, and there's a lot of discussions around within the Cypress plugin ecosystem how
Okay.
to make that like easy so new frameworks can have support kind of that they own, as opposed
Mhm.
to waiting on us and honestly having our team become overwhelmed by supporting 12 frameworks
Yeah.
that like we, we then own forever, right? The whole lifetime of them, every breaking change we're keeping up with. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
For
we have
sure.
to be careful about core support, but switching to a model where support can be set up the way other Cypress plugins work, I
Yeah.
think is probably something we'll focus on early this year.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Because for folks that don't know, I work on the frameworks team at Netlify, and all this stuff you're talking about, it's very relatable to framework support.
Yeah.
So at at the moment, yeah. So at the moment, for example, like Svelte, if you want to use it on Netlify, there's an adapter that's actually in the Svelte or Svelte kit repos, so that you can just load that adapter. So it's a similar pattern, and I understand for sure that you want to support that core, but you don't want the onus being on you for like literally every framework that comes out. Um, so
Yeah, and even today, it's totally possible in this option in your configuration to provide your own code to run there to mount your components if you know how to do it.
yeah,
So it's supported right now to have custom mount functions, but it could be made a lot easier, I think, and more
okay,
natural. Um,
yeah.
yeah.
And in terms of writing your own, I don't want to get too into the weeds, I guess, but like in Cypress, you can write custom commands. I used to do this when I was, because I'm not doing front end at the moment, but so like I would have like a sci.login for dev2 and all those things. So if you wanted a custom sci.mount, it just overrides it if you create a new command in the.
Yeah, it's actually really conducive to that sort of setup, because what we do with our mount command that we have bundled with Cypress, we declare it as a custom command in your commands file for you.
Okay.
So you may not need a custom mount for your framework, but you might have a bunch of dependencies that you need. So if you're using like a
Mhm.
library, or you want to wrap all of your components, I think in React
Okay.
land, people do this with providers sometimes. They say like, oh,
Yeah.
I actually want to nest my component in 5 things and then render it because I know that it's
Yeah.
likely to need all this stuff. And so you can control that and just have JSX and put your component in the middle of all the things you need it to be.
Okay.
Um, so you have that level of control over the mount command. And then we have because you have an empty page you render into, it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be an empty page. You have
Yeah.
full control over that HTML. So you can do things in the canvas that Cypress is going to put your component in if you
Mhm.
wanted metadata. I think that has been underexplored. You can go really far, really
Okay.
terribly far with that. Um, and we might poke at it a little bit, but you can like, because you own it and it's in the browser, and if you're writing components, JavaScript.
Mhm.
Cypress is pretty hackable and extensible, and component testing is like even more so because
Yeah.
you own that HTML page you're going to render into.
Yeah, it's uh I've used for component testing for myself. I have used Storybook in the past, I'm not trying to start some flame war or anything,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the things you're mentioning, that it's a similar concept. They have these decorators, so you can basically, like you said, bootstrap it with a bunch of providers. Like I know, like React Router was one where you would have to do that if you were like testing a link component or something. But the other things you could do, like you said, because you have control of the whole like your blank canvas. uh, like I used to load up, because the way Dev 2 worked, it was a Rails backend, so there was no like CSS and JS or anything that was like Preact specific, because that CSS had to be shared with the Rails app. So I would, we had commands to with Sass to build the CSS, so I would add those things to my canvas so that like the buttons actually rendered with style and stuff. So that's
Yeah,
cool that you
it's
can do all that. That's neat.
there are a lot of the same challenges of like mounting a component in Storybook that depends on global styles, right? There's you have to
Yeah.
solve some of those same things. And yeah, no flame war. We also like we use Storybook as Cypress for our design system. We dig it, and I think the convergence of several tools on um, browser based component testing. And I haven't looked
Yeah.
at Storybooks too much, but it somehow when you run it, it like wraps a jest sort of test in a Playwright jest helper or something, and you can run the test
Okay.
then later through Playwright. Like there's some things in there, and I think the
Okay.
main difference, there's some like technical differences when that's your implementation that I don't have even the context to fully get into, but like there's also an orientation difference to the tool as you're doing your development. So
Hmm.
Cypress is like really test first. And I did have a job where we didn't used to deploy Storybook. So at that
Okay.
company, we used Storybook for demos. And I used it so I could show various states of a component on a call to explain what my team had been doing for the last week. Because
Yeah.
if we didn't ship it to the UI like of the product, then people were like, okay, well, what are you doing over there, front end developers? Like,
Yeah.
uh, and I would be able to say, hey, this new map you wanted is really complicated. So here's the pieces, here's all the states. Um, and because I was reaching all of those in Cypress anyway for my component tests at that point, I did
Yeah.
switch to demoing with Cypress
Okay.
using like side.pause to move between all the states of my component.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, it really let me show it off and say, well, here's what the user would do, and then hit the play button through Cypress
Okay.
to move between states. That's a
Oh, neat.
really narrow use case for Storybook, so I wouldn't for a second suggest that this replaces Storybook, but we didn't deploy it. No product
Yeah.
person used it. We let our designer go at the beginning of the pandemic, which was like because she was a contractor. So like we
Yeah.
really had a very lean front end operation, and so for us, that was what I did, and I was like, I don't have a reason to maintain my stories and my tests
Hmm.
um, anymore. So like there's overlap, but then when you want someone to actually browse a design system and like do it, when you want to do other things that Storybook can do, like
Yeah.
absolutely keep using the tools that are best for you. Um, and
Yeah.
the test, I do think the test focused experience is what Cypress is really good at and what it's kind of oriented towards.
Yeah, for sure. And I was gonna say one thing that's really compelling about, even though I haven't used it yet, but just the fact that Cypress component testing is bundled in with the existing Cypress stuff. It's kind of like a one-stop shop, and there's also that familiarity if you've written, end-to-end tests before. So it's you know uh, it, I think that's kind of cool.
And there's something else I discovered recently. So, like, I didn't think about this much either when component testing was added, but when you have a component test that fails in CI, you have like a screenshot of the time that it failed and the error message,
Mhm.
and you have a full video recorded by Cypress. Like that
Yeah.
artifact, like, I was like, oh, I didn't even think to look for those because I never got those from component tests before. So I was
Yeah.
like only recently doing a talk about Cypress component testing. It was my third time doing it. And then I was like, I should add something in here about like the video and the fact that
Okay.
your like QA people at your company, if they see an end-to-end test that's failing, And in
Mm-hmm.
the same set of Cypress results, there's also a component test that's failing. It's like maybe that component explains the end-to-end test, and you can
Mm-hmm.
get a quick look at the assets from that component test failure. And
Okay.
like, because it's the same as Cypress, QA people on external teams can read and understand that component test,
Yeah.
and they could also discover a bug and say, "Oh, I have a bug here in the login flow.
Yeah.
We have a component test for this. How about I make the assertion that reveals the bug in the
Mm-hmm.
component test so a developer can have that really fast feedback cycle while they do the work. And then when it's passing in the component test, the developer can push it up and see if CI passes on all the end-to-end tests, which
Yeah.
is way different than maintaining end-to-end tests that mostly run in CI and are like a little harder to run locally because they're slow or you
Yeah.
need an environment or something. So I'm really
But that,
excited about this because I haven't been like, it's still sort of new. So these ideas are still developing for me, but like I think it's
okay.
cool.
No, that's super cool what you mentioned about the videos and the screenshots, because I have used those for end-to-end tests, but it makes sense that they would be available for the component test because you're in the same kind of spot. So that's super cool. Awesome. Okay, well, I know we've been talking about a lot of stuff here. Definitely great conversation, but I was wondering, you shared a project with me. I believe it's a Vue project, and we're gonna kind of take a peek at component testing, I think, right?
Yeah, let's do it. And
Okay.
we can maybe start with like poking at a couple of them that are set up for us. And if we have time and we feel like it, we can add some new components.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, this is an application that I use sort of for teaching. So it is built on the standard Vue like CLI app that people might be used to if you're used to Vue. And I know
Okay.
that you're not a daily Vue person, so um, we might get to talk about some of those concepts as well.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah, if we,
sure.
I just made this to noodle around on various ideas.
Okay. So, yeah, so I guess let's take a quick peek at just the project. So, for folks that might be new to Cypress, so typically, uh, I haven't really seen any projects that change it, but Cypress always adds a Cypress folder, and so we have our end-to-end tests in there, and then there's a couple tests here. For component tests, they're not end-to-end tests per se. Do you typically create a separate folder, I imagine, or?
Normally, we put them beside the components themselves. So
Okay,
if
yeah,
you go under SRC and components in here, you will see like every component has a sibling, and the sibling is a component spec that
okay,
imports the component and mounts it. And in this example, like in this case, I've taken away all of the assertions so that we can sort of think about adding them ourselves.
okay,
Um, so we can kind of open one of these tests in Cypress and see that it mounts the component, and then
okay,
think about what do we have to do to test it.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, this is the structure that we recommend. You can make like people make a tests folder and put everything there, but I find it really convenient to just have a single file component and then a sibling that is the component test.
yeah.
And
No,
I
that
will
makes
say,
sense.
yeah, I have like tried other arrangements and I've tried having one component test like test multiple things. Say
Mm-hmm.
like if I mount a component that renders some children and I sort of test all the children in that parent component,
Mm-hmm.
like I've kind of got the coverage there. But over time, I find that harder to think about, harder to find where the coverage is. So I've become very clear, at least for me. I'm like one component spec. There we go.
Yeah. We got Chris Demars just popped in. Hey,
Hey,
Chris, how you
Chris.
doing, man?
That's great.
Cool. Yeah. No. Yeah. You're totally right about the co-locating the tests, and I had a bit of a brain fart because when I was leading front end over at Dev 2, we had our tests in Storybook over there co-located. So yeah, no, it makes sense. Um, cool. And I'm not sure who just followed. I have a feeling it might have been Chris. I didn't see it go by.
I think it
Um,
was Chris. Yeah, and
yeah.
it's good because Demars is here. We're gonna have to talk more about accessibility. So that's all always really good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, Chris, and also anybody else that's joined the stream. Yeah, we're talking about component testing with Cypress today. We've just been kind of chatting about end-to-end testing and component testing, and now we're just going to dig into a Vue project that Mark got set up for the stream, and we're going to just look at some tests and like you said, we're going to add in some of the stuff to the test to test them out, right?
Yep. So why
Okay.
don't we start by kind of, do you have the application itself running that we can do like the just take a quick look at the context first, and then we can open
Yeah.
Cypress?
Yeah. I just what was? Oh yeah. I just need to serve it, right?
Yep.
NR is just my alias for npm run. That's me just
Oh,
being lazy.
nice.
I'm so lazy that my yarn command is just the letter Y.
That's good.
Okay, cool. Let's copy
Cool.
that. I have a few few windows open, so I just want to make sure it opens it to the right one.
Cool.
Okay,
All right.
so yeah, tell us what we got
So
here, I guess.
so this is like if you spin up a Vue app with the Vue CLI, you get this page. I've added a little navigation bar at the top, so we have two pages and like a little simulated login stuff that
Okay,
just like changes state when you put something in there. So nothing too fancy, but like a little bit of extra bells and whistles that are more interesting for testing. And if you
okay,
refresh this page, there's also like a fake loading state.
okay.
So it's going to say like, oh, pretending to load and then bring it in. So just again to give us like everything's not there immediately. Does
Hmm.
Cypress wait for things to be there before it fails, and does? So there's like, yeah, things like that that we can talk about testing
Okay,
too.
yeah, for sure.
Um, Sweet. And then I think we should look at the smallest component. So if you open Cypress component testing, we can look at the hello list item component just so we have a starting point, and then we can explore a little bit more kind of off the back of that.
Okay, is that in component index.html or where is that?
So that will be just like if you run npx cypress open, and we'll do
Sorry,
all
start up Cypress.
yeah,
Sorry.
we can do all this through the Cypress UI. We can even add new
Okay.
tests in the UI.
Okay. And obviously we're doing component tests now, so I don't have to have the app running because we're not running end-to-end tests, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it shouldn't yell at you when you try to do that. It might if you start end-to-end testing. But yeah,
Okay.
so here is the launch pad that we call it. And
Yeah.
you can choose component testing.
Okay.
It's going to give you some browser options. If people are like not keeping up with the Cypress changelog, which not everybody does, WebKit is now supported too as an experiment. If you have the bundled, like unwrapped, non-Safari version of WebKit that Playwright provides
Yeah.
installed locally, you can use WebKit. So here
Oh,
you don't
that's
have
cool.
that. Yeah, I would just pick Chromium, but
Yeah.
just being aware that WebKit is available in Cypress now too.
Chrome is damaged and cannot be opened. Okay. Sure.
Electron is fine too. Yeah, we may have to restart.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I I think I have Chromium installed, but um, I don't know what's going on there. But hold on a sec. Okay, my
Yeah,
phone
all of
keeps
them
ringing.
should work the same. So yeah,
Yeah, let's go Electron for now. Um, okay, cool.
beautiful.
It wouldn't be a live stream if something didn't go boom. So
Yeah, no, I'm expecting only the things that I worked on in Cypress will break in this stream.
yeah.
So that's the rule.
Yeah, this is just a side note, but because these things are running in the browser, you get zooming capabilities too. Like I can zoom in, which is nice because when you're in a desktop app, a lot of times you can't do that. So
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things too. I run a lot of things at 150 or something like that.
okay,
Um, so yeah, what you see here is the list of specs, and there's some UI there around the runs and the statuses of those that are based on if you're logged into the Cypress dashboard. That's what those
okay,
columns are.
yeah,
So we might have some time to fool around with that, but the idea is if these specs ran in CI, this gives you easy access to understand did they pass or fail in CI. What are things that may be flaky? So if something is intermittently passing in CI, especially
okay,
in the same run, you can see a little flaky badge here, even if it was green. So just to
okay,
finish this thought, if you had a test, let's say nav good use retries in CI to pass. So it was green, CI was green, but it failed twice and passed once
Okay.
because you configured 3 retries. Cypress can warn you in here, hey, this one's flaky. Even though it's
Okay.
green in CI, it's actually passing only 20% of the time or 30% of the time.
Oh, that's
So
nice.
yeah, and flake is not necessarily bad. Flake is potentially your application is non-deterministic.
Yeah.
And so that's really good information because it means, does that mean it's only ever working for 20 or 30% of users? Probably not. Probably means your machines in CI are so poorly resourced that they're hitting a different state of your application, and you found
Yeah.
a race condition.
Yeah.
So
And but
yeah,
yeah. No, and the good thing about that too is because like I don't know anybody who has never experienced a flaky test. I find they happen more on end-to-end tests, and this is not because of the tool. It's not because of Cypress or Playwright or whatever. It's like you're saying, like maybe it's not deterministic, or how you're trying to request waiting for something. Maybe you're not waiting for it in the correct way. Like I don't know, maybe that button only appears once there's like you had in the page there where it said preparing to load page or whatever. You know, if you wrote your test to just say go get me that first link, it might not be there right away, and if the network is slow, you know, you're never
yeah.
checking for that. So,
The network layer is often the source of flake. The other source of flake can be like in your own little testing world. If you need to like reset some users in your database or something, and you're doing it in an after each, and on your local machine, it's super fast. So it's always ready for your test to start. But on your
yeah.
CI machines, it's not always ready. You can get flake from a source like that.
Yeah.
So the like, yeah, the flake in a component test is much more weird. It's like usually you don't have a network or you stub the network completely in
Hmm.
components. So what could be the cause of flake is really like something you might want to dig
Check
into.
in.
Yeah,
Okay, cool. So
cool.
I was wondering before we write a test or improve a test, can we just run one like just to see how it looks in the runner?
Yes, and we go through that same flow. So I'll show you like all my favorite stuff as we do this. So if you pick
Okay,
hello list
perfect.
item, yeah,
Yeah.
cool. So it was very fast because it probably has no assertions in it, right? If you expand any of these checkboxes, like the only thing logged here is the mount command, and
Okay, yeah.
since it successfully mounted, it passed the test. So
Hmm.
that wouldn't happen. Your application would throw an error or something if you didn't have a well-formed component that could mount. So
Yeah.
that's the most basic thing that we know. And then we have like an easy way. If you click where it says the file name on the left, it
Yeah.
should bring up your editor with that file open.
Okay. I'm using Insider, so let's
Sweet.
do that. Okay, cool. That's a nice integration.
I do that all the time, and so I go back and forth between my spec files and Cypress and everything, and I like to use workspaces and slide everything around my screen all the time. So just having
Okay.
this like cool. And then you can also like then you can command click on the import at the top to get to your component file.
Yeah.
So like yeah, I think if you click on the file name itself, that part of the import VS Code will just open it for you. I
Oh,
don't know
okay.
with
You just mean regular
insiders.
VS Code. Yeah, you can go
Yeah,
to F12 definition. Yeah. Okay.
exactly. So this is like how I start work a lot of the time. If I want to do a piece of front end work, I will go get the component spec in Cypress because I can easily search for it or whatever, and then I will click through, get to the component test itself, get my view file open. This is great.
Okay.
So here we know that there's like a behavior of this list where something can be active or not. If we just take a quick look at like lines 4 and 5, and I honestly don't remember. This is written a while ago, so like
Okay.
the exact behavior here is it looks like it's a prop that has content, and then content is an object. So the object can say this is active as an item in the list or not, and the object, like the
Okay.
content object, also provides the name. So that's how this function works. That's how this like list item works. It's a really basic component.
Okay.
It looks like it also only does links. So every list item has a href, or really every
Okay.
hello list item in this hello world app, right, is a special category of list item that renders links.
Okay. Yeah,
So
gotcha.
the and the active state is used in navigation, for example. So we can drive the state of whether something appears to be active in the nav based on which page you're on, and we can do
Okay.
that by modifying the data this component receives.
Okay, cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of Vue, I haven't really done a lot of Vue. I've done a couple streams with it, but um, I find it's pretty. I don't find it that difficult to grok because it's like the sections are pretty straightforward. It's style, script, and then like the template. I don't know if they took template from like is that from web components, or is that, I know it's
I
part of the markup, but
Yeah, I think it's just from plain HTML. I learned about when I was fooling around making my own template language at one point. I learned about the template element,
okay.
and it renders like if you put anything just in plain HTML in a template element, it will
Yeah.
render in the DOM but not be visible.
Yeah.
So, and then you can grab the contents with your own JavaScript and do what you want with your template, like replace values with stuff, and then you control the rendering, the visual rendering. So I think it's just that. And this is an older format. This is the options API in Vue, which was the standard in Vue 2, and this is a Vue 3 project.
Okay.
I kind of, at the time that I made this, especially the composition API and script setup and things like that that are new in Vue hadn't really settled down. So I
Okay.
use it. Um, the only thing that's special in here is this data sci component on line 4 of the item like component file.
Yeah.
This is not a Cypress feature. This is something I did in this project as an example. We might come
Okay.
back to it from the end-to-end tests, but it's a way to quickly figure out which part of the DOM is owned by which component. So if you're
Okay.
wondering like, what is the component I have to go to fix something, or where's this tested? A little helper like this that just knows how to tell you what the component name is can be
Okay.
used by the Cypress Playground. And we'll get to that kind of later from the end to end.
Okay.
So that's all that is. It's not a Cypress feature. It's just like a thing I added.
Okay, and this is view code here, but this, I imagine, changes this to a data attribute called data dash side dash component that'll be available in the markup. Is that
Exactly, yeah. So
okay?
it's just that little colon at the start just means, hey, bind this value to this JavaScript.
Okay.
And I did that just so I didn't have to like know in advance what the name of the component was or like duplicate the name or whatever. So it just renders in the markup as a little helper.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, cool. So do you want to test some stuff about this component? We've
Yeah.
kind of
Why don't we do that?
described what it's responsible for. Um, and the first one's a little tricky, right? We want to test that it didn't render.
Okay.
Um, so what I would do is where it says it does not render, let's do it like dot only
Okay. Yeah.
after
Just
the
so we don't
it.
get that running.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll just solo this one.
Okay.
And doing that, if we go back to Cypress, we should see that it's rerun because you edited the test. So you
Yeah.
don't have to actively rerun it. Every now and then you can probably get to a state where that might happen, but here it's rerun for you.
Okay.
And we can also see the preview on the right-hand side is empty.
Mm-hmm.
So if you kind of click into that with DevTools, you'll see only what Cypress provides.
Okay. And this is also just for folks that might not have used Cypress that much, because it's in the browser. You get the dev tools, which I've always found pretty valuable with the end-to-end testing. But obviously, it's available with component testing too, so that's pretty cool.
Yep. And so here, what I would do is click on the whatever the little helper is. Yeah, that works. So you're inside the iframe now that Cypress makes to contain your component. When you go
Okay.
into the body tag, you will see this data sci root element.
Yeah.
And inside of that, there's a little bit of extra view helper stuff. And then there is just the comment left over from the component representing this VIF logic. So
Okay.
view didn't render. And the only thing I would test for here is that component selector, that helper that we made, does not exist. So
Okay. Yeah.
we could test other things, but what it will do is it'll wait for the default timeout to make sure the component doesn't appear, and then we can move on and test the next thing.
Okay. So yeah, so it renders that. So I guess we would say make sure it doesn't say hello, like get by label or get by link uh, name
I
or
think
what?
all of those are even a little risky because the component could break and render something else instead.
Okay.
So I would do something like sci.get and just put in the element name. And
Okay.
it seemed like you had some autocomplete that was helping there too.
Oh yeah, I have Copilot enabled.
It's
One
so
of
good.
the perks of working in open source.
Yeah, yeah. So and then you can do dot should and you can pass should just not exist.
Yeah.
And
Thank you,
so this is the
Copilot. Yeah.
expectation that it will not be in the DOM at all, right? We didn't want this component to render. If we save that file and go back to our test,
Okay. Yeah.
cool.
Awesome.
So it's that quick. And also, I would maybe go and go into the code for a second and take away line 3 like of the component. So we'll
Yeah.
break the v if.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Oh yeah, it's view. You're gonna have to just delete it for a second or move it.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. No worries.
The pain of commenting out lines in view templates.
Okay, so we get, let me just close the dev tools for a sec. So we get a nice failure in the UI here. Okay.
Yeah, we got a failure for some other reason, but it's fine because we tried to render and
Hmm.
oh, I see. Yeah, we got a failure for the same reason, but incidentally, because the component assumes content will be there, it
Yeah.
errors anyway.
Okay.
So this is still fine, right?
Okay. Yeah.
The main thing in that process was editing the component file also reran the test automatically.
Cool.
So as you go bounce back and forth and make changes and saves files, Cypress should be keeping up with you and rerunning, so you always have that feedback.
Cool. No, that's
Cool. Yeah,
nice.
let's
And
put.
I just want to highlight something about Cypress is the feedback loop is really quick, which is nice.
Yeah, and I have customized the default command timeout, I think, in this project in
Okay.
component test to be just 1 second. Because, like we said, there's not a network layer. There's not really any reason to wait around and see if something changes.
Yeah.
Typically, by default, Cypress will wait 4 seconds. So it will wait up to 4 seconds, I should say. If you are trying to do an action and it's not ready yet, the element's not there, Cypress will kind of keep retrying and waiting for
Okay.
your choice. And that's great in end-to-end testing because it can be slow for some network requests to come back and actually get the element in the page. But in component testing, I want the failure annoyingly fast. I just want the failure immediately. There should be nothing in the UI layer that takes 4 seconds. So
Cool.
cool. And now we've done the test, and then we can move on to the next one and see if we can kind of fill that in.
Yeah. So I'll just do dot only again.
Yeah.
Okay. So so basically we've got the hello list item again. This time we're passing in a prop with the test content, which I'm not sure where that's coming from, but we're spreading that with setting it to active. So I guess my first question is there like a setup somewhere that's setting the test content?
Yeah,
or
let's take a look. I think it's at the top of the file. Maybe not.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so that's
Great.
the hello and the test link. Okay, got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Not
So that's
not
just
magic.
to avoid repeating things. Yeah, exactly. And then I'm overriding the active to say it's true, and then we're just mounting again. And so even now you should be able to go back and see what this looks like.
Yeah. Okay.
Sweet. And
Hello
and
test. Yeah.
and Copilot had a pretty good idea.
Yeah, yeah. I saw that flash there. I'm never sure. This is a side note, but I'm never sure if I should turn it off during the stream. Well, one, I always forget it's on, but
Yeah.
it just because like when you're trying to teach something, sometimes it's like yeah, wait.
Well, I think I'm happy to use it, and then we can also talk about the pros and cons of different ways of testing this behavior.
Mhm.
So this is something that should pass if you save it, because there should be an li with the class active to provide the styles. So that's great.
Yeah.
But in real life, you might not want to test for a class name at all.
Yeah.
That's a kind of a structural decision because you might just want visual regression testing to cover this. Something like the Percy or whatever that compares the real screenshots could cover
Mhm.
this. totally depends on what your needs are in your code base. But
Yeah.
the way that I would test this list item, because we know it's supposed to contain a link, is I would do a sci.contains.
Okay.
And I'll show you why this is my favorite thing. So we can get rid of the get completely as well.
Oh, okay. Oh, sci.doc contains directly. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it can take two parameters. So your first argument could be li space a. So this is
Okay.
like my initial accessibility thing of I want this text to be in a link in a list item. Those are the
Yeah.
parts that I care about as a developer who wrote this thing. So I want to make sure that those are there.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is the text that it should contain, which can be from your test content.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you can literally type it in, or you can like, yeah.
Not this part. Not today, Copilot. Okay.
And you can pull that. You can, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be a string. Sweet.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess let's just run this first. That should
Yeah, let's see what we
pass.
got. Cool. So
Okay.
that passed, and that told us a lot of information. And if we wanted to assert the class, I would just change my contain selector to be li.active.
Yeah.
So we keep the A, and you could just modify exactly where and the active goes on the wrapping list item, which is the kind of
Oh, it's
detail
on the item.
that
Okay.
that like makes you not want to test it like this.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is why this is my favorite of the Cypress commands for assertions, though, is you have all of the power of that first argument to be anything about the DOM you care about, right? And nothing you don't care about. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put an arrow in here. Like if you did a caret and said,
Yeah.
the A must be a direct child, that's probably going to pass too.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't care. I don't care about that.
Nope. Maybe
Nope.
not. Let's see. Try again.
Yeah, let's try again. Interesting. That feels like a fluke.
Yeah. I'm gonna attribute it to we're just streaming and that just went boom. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Let's yeah, it's all good. Okay.
Yeah. It's great if that's a real bug, though, that an arrow in the CSS selector breaks the config. All right. And so that's it. The only thing I might chain on this is I might change should be visible. I use this a lot after contains whatever. So the next command I might chain after this is just like, yeah, .should be .visible.
Yeah. And cool. Yeah.
And
okay. And that.
Yeah, what contains does is it confirms the element is found in the DOM. And then the visibility check, happens for free in Cypress if you click something or interact with it. We'll say, oh, this must be actionable, and it'll trigger a whole bunch of things to be checked. But if we're not going to act on it, if we just want to say the element is there, should be visible, we'll check stuff like, is it being covered by another element? Is the opacity more than 0? All the other things you can think of that might make it not visible. Except scrolling, at least by default, right? It could be lower down the page. We don't care. It's still like, it's possible to see it. So like there's that aspect of this testing that's actually, I would point it out that it's different to the JS DOM stuff, because in those environments, in the node-based environment, you can't always tell, did the browser react to the CSS in such a way that you ended up with a hidden element? So this is like an extra little layer of confidence for me that in this component, nothing hid the element. Some higher level component might, but yeah, I find I do it all the time. I almost want to make a custom command that wraps be visible on all things like this.
Yeah,
cool.
It definitely makes sense to be testing things in the browser, because like even like when I first started doing React, there was another testing library. It's still around, but Enzyme. It's kind of like you were saying with the, I forget what the view testing one was, but you know, like go to the next state and stuff, and like it was really focused on the implementation details. Okay, now I need to set the state of the component to this, and then I can do my test. And to me, that's not it's kind of like you're opening the black box instead of testing the black box, you know? So yeah, so this is good.
And so the other thing about this code that we wrote on line 17 is this would work equally well from an end-to-end test. So I think of component testing as like coming through the front door. We do a little bit of developer stuff because we have to know on line 16 in the mount command, we need to know what's the name of that prop. So it's
Hmm.
called content. But after that, we are, as a user, front door, and we might spy on some other developer facing stuff. We might
Okay.
jump around in a minute and look at like what happens if a component's supposed to emit an event,
Yeah.
because that's the surface area, like you said, right?
Hmm.
That's developers are expecting that event to work. They might be consuming your components in a different code base.
Yeah.
So I feel it's totally okay and necessary to know prop names and event names and like other special stuff that developers use. But then I want to know nothing about the internal
Hmm.
component. I don't care if it has children, don't care what they
Yeah.
are, I don't care what its methods are. Um, I will briefly say I had a question the other day of like, how do I test a method inside my component that has no effect on the user interface? And you
Okay.
can, right? There is escape hatches for this. The value yielded by sci.mount is the instance of the component itself, and it's an
Okay.
object that includes one or two things. So if you need an escape hatch and you want to test something like that, great. But if you have a method in your component that has no effect on the user
Yeah.
interface, maybe you probably don't need that in that component, and you could,
Yeah.
like, what's it doing? What's your component responsible for that it's doing things that don't
Yeah.
affect the user or the developer, doesn't emit an event, doesn't do something you can detect in Cypress? So it helps with component design if you're in component test driven life to just be like, I want to write an
Yeah.
easy test, so I want a component that's not responsible for too many things and isn't doing weird side effects.
Yeah. And I mean, if anything, the interesting thing about like component testing is you're always building it in isolation, so you're forced in a good way to make it componentized. You know what I mean? Like when like previous to component testing, when you would build an app, you might be like, okay, I made some changes, I'm going to test it in the app. But the thing with that is you have access to the whole app, so you might be pulling in global stuff and so on. But then when you end up on this empty canvas, it's like I can't pull in that global stuff. Or like we were saying at the beginning, if you do need to bootstrap some things, you modify the mount to add a provider or maybe set some global thing because you expect that. But in general, you shouldn't be pulling in all these things that aren't part of the component. But to your point about the that method that was doing, or that function that was doing nothing in the component, if for some reason they do need it, like it's actually doing something, like maybe logging, pass it in as a prop and maybe check that it was called. But that's
Yeah,
even that,
or you
I don't
can
know.
certainly like, reach into the component instance if you need to and run a mini unit test. If that's what your architecture needs, Cypress has escape hatches for that. But like our
Yeah.
recommendation is definitely, as a user, as a sort of mini end-to-end test that isolates your component.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't think we need to go through all the other parts of this test. I think we've kind of made the point. This is test. The rest of it is testing that it works with various formats of links, which is just like,
Yeah.
uh, similar variations. Is the href correct? We probably could add an assertion here, just for the href, just to kind of demonstrate that actually. So even on line 17,
Okay.
um, after the should,
Yeah.
so we can chain all these things together. And the way I like to format it is I would make a new line for the should, and then we can make a
Yeah.
new line for the next thing. Um, and we can
Oh yeah, it's
say,
pretty. I'm usually using prettier, so it just happens. But yeah.
oh, cool. Yeah. So whatever way you like it. But I find the and, which is just an alias for should, pretty easy to
Yeah.
read and a little shorter. And you can say
Okay.
and have dot h. Look at that.
So if I save this, yeah, okay, now I've got the prettier plugin, so it's
Oh,
keeping
cool.
it
Yeah.
there.
So
Okay.
Copilot's been like, hey, just he's probably going to want to test the href on this link. That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Copilot's been keeping dibs on you. Um,
And
uh,
so if we go back and look at the href, then we have kind of specified that our component renders the link in a functional fashion based on the
yeah.
content it receives.
Okay, let me try this again.
Yeah. And that permissions issue is, I just looked at the context of that. That
Oh,
is a, like an unusual bug, but it's related probably to the version of OS X you're on.
it's not that.
Or
It's
like,
this. I have a prompt. It just disappeared. It said I have a thing to allow. It was saying VS Code to change it, but it just disappeared. Let me try and get it back out. But okay, here it is.
yeah,
I'm gonna
let's,
allow it. Okay, it should be. Okay, yeah, sure. Allow
Yeah.
the application to, sure. Cool. All right. All right. Yeah, sure. Why not? Okay. We'll just
Yeah.
restart. It's all good though.
So yeah,
Um,
I've definitely I've had like as Mac gets more restrictive in permissions, I've been like occasionally having to tweak some stuff as well, using things that watch the file system or whatever, the way
yeah,
that Cypress is watching for your changes in your code. Um,
that's all good though.
so
Okay, so let me just start Cypress again. Okay, cool. Let's close that. All right,
all right,
we're
cool.
back at it. So just to be clear for folks that saw that, it's not Cypress crashing. It's me having to set some permissions on my machine. Okay, cool. So let's go back to that hello list item. Okay, now, okay, so there we've got that other assertion there.
Yep.
Cool.
And so, yeah, I think as you get started, if people aren't used to Cypress, that chaining API can be a little bit unintuitive. But the way that it passes the test values down through multiple assertions can make it easy to write relatively readable test code,
Yeah.
where you can read it almost like a kind of story about what the user is supposed to be able to do. Um,
Yeah, no,
so
I'm a fan of it. I like the Fluent API where you can just keep going.
cool. Do you want to pick a different component to work on then?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, whoops. Okay, let's close that. So let's see, what components do we have? Um, I know you're more familiar with the project, obviously. So do you have a suggestion for a component to pick, or?
Yeah, why don't we actually pick it through an end-to-end test, right? So we can switch Cypress to end-to-end testing mode and inspect the
Okay,
page and like, yeah, just show a little bit how that can work. And there's a
okay.
shortcut to change this up at the top, that little home icon there. Yeah, if you click on that, you can choose end-to-end
Ah,
from
okay,
there.
perfect. Nice.
So Cypress has to like switch gears. And now, like if you try to go to one of these, I bet they will complain about there's just nothing running, right?
Oh yeah, the app's not running. Yeah, okay, so I'll
Yeah.
start up the app again. Okay, that's normal. Cool. So let's just open up another one and what was it? NR serve. Cool. Let's close that. Then if we retry this, there we go.
Great.
Okay, perfect.
So actually just on this screen is ideal, right? If you click on the little target button to the left of the URL at the top of the screen where it says
Yep.
localhost whatever, this opens up the Cypress Playground. And I have some custom settings in here that tell Cypress Playground to look for the data sci component attribute.
Okay.
So that lets you kind of explore the page and figure out which component is responsible for rendering this part of the DOM. So if
Okay.
we look at something like the login form over there,
Yeah.
we can see it says
Oh, that's the header. Sorry.
that's the header. Yeah,
Okay.
you can maybe
Yeah.
to go a little
Scroll down.
further. We can see that it's this
Okay.
login form component or something like that. Your screen's a little blurry for me, so
Oh
I can't
yeah,
see what
no
it is. But
worries.
yeah,
Yeah, it must have blurred on the sharing there. Let me
yeah,
check that. But yeah, it says data sci component with a thing here. Let me just make sure
sweet.
that you can still see that okay. Sometimes it switches. Give me 2 seconds here. Additional controls. That should be okay. I'm not sure
It
it
might
might
just
get a
be
little fuzzy.
our little like user that's blown up in the chat for us or in the call for us.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
so yeah, let's pick something that has some behavior to it. So we want to test it before and after. Disclosure widget's a pretty good one, actually. I think it's one of the first ones you'd seen.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so that's the
cool.
component we want to test. Disclosure. There we go. Okay,
Cool.
so I guess do you want to
And
look at the
then,
component first or look at the test or?
yeah, let's look at the test and it'll bring up the component and then we can talk
Okay.
about the like sort of next level, which is, oh, let me click on something and assert that it changed.
Okay.
Um,
I just wanted
so
to do a quick time check. We've got about 10 minutes left, which I'm fine going over a bit if you want to. I don't know what your schedule is like today, but
yeah, I can go over a little bit too. That's fine with me, or we can call it at the actual time.
yeah, we can
I
go.
may
We can go
actually,
like I guess whenever you need to go, I guess just let me know. I just want to be mindful of your time is all.
Yeah, I may have something that just popped up at 2:30 exactly because my calendar had a little white space in it.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
so let's take a quick look at this one in Cypress, and then I want to give you a quick tour of some of the other possibilities that you can test.
Okay.
So if you go back to Cypress and switch back to the component testing, we can open it up and look at it through.
Yeah.
And
I
so
like
yeah,
that you can
because
switch like that. That's super handy.
yeah, it would be great if they were all unified. I think one day we'll get to that. But for now, you can play with that component in there too, just for clarity. And you can let's look at that first one. Renders when no slots are used.
Okay.
Cool. And if you hover there, yeah, you get the time travel experience of like this is what it looked like at that point in the test.
Yeah. Okay.
So now we can do something like sci.contains untitled disclosure dot click in our test, right? And
Okay.
see if the expected side effect was there.
Yeah. So let's go there. So this is in uh it renders not when it renders when no slots are
Yeah,
rendered. Sorry.
this is it.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do an it dot only, or you can just like run them
Oh
both.
yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I can. Yeah, I can do the dot only. Sure. And you said we're gonna do a sci dot what?
Sci dot contains.
Okay.
Cool, and try a dot click.
Yeah. And from what I remember, because it's been a while, but dot click will check for it being visible, right?
Exactly. So all
Yeah.
those things that we did ourselves are like free.
Okay.
Cool. And now we can see our test state as you scroll through it like that, you can pin the various points in it. And then we did the click. And after the click, if you unpin and just hover,
Okay.
yeah, you can see after the click, JavaScript updated. So we did not
Okay.
have to advanced view.nextTick or whatever to make this happen.
Okay.
And we can make an assertion panel with no details like that content appeared.
Okay.
Um,
So let's do that. So we'll do side dot contains and that panel. We need to. What's the markup for that? Or I guess we can just look
for
for it.
this,
Eh?
let's focus on the text itself. It's a detailed summary element under the hood,
Yeah.
so it's those. And we might want to, for accessibility, assert that it's really using summary and details because you get some free behavior from those elements that is important.
Okay.
But just for the principle of the test and for time as well, we can leave it at this and say, yeah, that should be visible.
Okay. So that runs and it's visible.
Yep.
Getting back to your point though about making sure it's accessible. So like checking for that actual element would be a way to do that too. So like I could, I guess I
Yeah, I
could do
think
this then. It would just be that's in the details, right?
yeah. So I think if you did that and put a comma,
And
and if this doesn't
then
work first time, we'll double check like what's the markup.
yeah. Okay, so
So let's inspect the markup. Maybe this is a custom component that doesn't do that, but yeah, we'll
Oh,
find out
it's
what's in there.
okay, so it's we got a div in a paragraph. Okay.
Yeah, and then we have ARIA expanded and ARIA controls that are managing the accessibility of it. So this is not a summary details like I remembered. This is
Okay.
like managed through that. So the thing we could assert is that the button should have ARIA expanded true when this is
Yeah.
visible and should have ARIA expanded false when this is not visible.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so that would be this, and dot should have adder. Yeah, thank you. And then and just before, I should also, I cannot. I'm not going to do an alias right now, but
Yeah,
this
you could store this and use an alias to get it every time, or you can
yeah.
just copy the line.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do that for now. So this, I'm just typing that shit. Whoops, sorry, sorry about that. My mouse went out a little wonky there. So that should be a
Yeah.
should not dot have. Is it like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it would just be not have adder argue expanded, or
Oh yeah, we don't
it
need a
would
value.
be, yeah, or it could be false depending on like the details. So we'll see what
Okay, yeah.
happens here. And I also want to make sure that that really selects the button element. So your
Okay.
contains might select something else. So if we start with
Okay.
button as the first parameter, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And then
And
you can
then
still have the text. You still need the text in the contains.
yeah, and
Because
then that should have
like
expanded.
on line 13, you still
Yeah.
need to have like two parameters in there because we
Oh
want to
yeah,
say
yeah.
button and your label text. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. And this the contains is kind of like side get by roll with a button, I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
so what are we missing here? So that is that one's passing, right? Assert expected button not to have. I have a feeling it's probably got it set to false.
Yeah. It's probably bound to false in there.
It's
So
expect.
we can quickly like run that test with just,
Yeah, I don't know where the button is here at the moment, but yeah, let's do that. So this should have adder and set it to false. Okay. And then false. Okay, we
sweet.
got further. Yeah, so there's something else. So contains details. Oh, yeah, because it's not a details anymore.
Yeah. We could maybe just do a paragraph or whatever it's actually in.
Yeah, it was a paragraph.
I do prefer to have like something rather than nothing. So this is good.
Yeah.
We have an attribute that's bound to the accessibility behavior to communicate this to assistive technology, and it is cycling correctly with the actual,
Yeah.
like, yeah. And
Uh,
so I briefly looking at the test you wrote,
yeah.
we changed that click on the second one. We chained that off of the contains, and then we immediately chained the expectation of what should happen after the click. So
Yeah. Okay.
that accounts for some of this stuff where the framework has to react to the click, update the virtual DOM, insert there. There's this little bit of time where Cypress has to do the wait, but it doesn't take more than 1 second, so it doesn't fail the
Yeah.
test. And it doesn't also say, oh, it didn't immediately change the attribute. So I think that's
Yeah.
a sort of important feature.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I know we're pretty much at time here. So this has been super cool, Mark. Because again, I want to be mindful of your time.
Cool. Yeah.
If you ever want to come on again sometime in the future, we can dig in even more into something with components.
I would
I'm just
love
gonna.
that. Yeah, we can do some more advanced stuff. I think this is great covering the basics. So yeah, really appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. I'm just dropping your Twitter, the Cypress site, as well as their Twitter, and just a link to the component testing for folks if they want to check that out. This has
Yeah.
been super fun. I like how straightforward this is, and again, like just how snappy it is, and uh, like you
And you didn't
mentioned,
have to
just
learn any Vue to do a component test, right? Because
yeah,
we're outside of
exactly.
that almost all the time. We're in like normal web testing land. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, for folks that might not be aware of the newer stuff in Cypress, there is experimental support for Safari now. Component testing is still relatively new, so check that out.
Yeah,
And yeah,
there's multi-domain stuff happening that's out there now too for like logging into third-party authorization providers and stuff. So
okay,
yeah, if your last time you looked at Cypress was like a year ago, there's a ton of new stuff that might be interesting to people.
cool. All right.
All
Well,
right.
thanks again, Mark. Just a heads up for folks, you can check the schedule, but we have, let me drop the schedule, but we have Brandon Roberts from Open Sauce coming up on Friday. We're going to be talking about a bunch of things, Angular, Analog, which is a project he's working on, and open source in general. So check that out. And yeah, thanks again. And we'll see you all on Friday, folks. Thanks, Mark.